Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP, and today I'm going to be going through a Raw recap from last night's episode of Monday Night Raw. This is the Monday 22nd of September edition, 2025. So how about we break things down? We go into all the details of everything that took place across the course of the night, and this is just coming off the back of WrestlePalooza this past weekend. So, let's dive into all the action, and we're going to kick things off with our opening segment, which featured the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, the WWE Undisputed Champion himself, coming on down to the ring and gracing Raw with his presence. He would start to reference the inaugural Crown Jewel Championship ring, which he was in fact wearing for this segment. With obviously Crown Jewel coming up as the next PLE, there's lots of focus now going to be going towards that on the horizon. He would then start to mention his upcoming match against Seth Rollins, because obviously that matchup is champion versus champion. So WWE Undisputed Champion versus the World Heavyweight Champion, Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins. Doesn't take too long before then the Vision, they come down, they arrive, and Seth gets into the ring. Seth would go on to say that, after SummerSlam, where they both actually won their championships, Seth cashing in and obviously Cody beating John Cena, that he had Crown Jewel circled because he knew that it would mean Seth versus Cody. He'd go on to say that it would be, it should be a simple case of, the best man will win, but because it's Seth versus Cody, that just can't happen. Seth continues, saying how he knows what CM Punk thinks of him. This is after the crowd start chanting for CM Punk. Before then, he asks Cody, what does he think of him? So what does Cody think of Seth? Cody would respond, basically saying how, Seth has made some questionable choices recently, one of which being Paul Heyman. He specifically targets him in the conversation. Cody would then basically say to Seth that, he actually changed his life on multiple occasions. When he returned a few years ago now, back at WrestleMania, where he'd faced Seth Rollins in that matchup, going on to Hell in a Cell, obviously with a torn pec, and, the importance of that particular matchup and what it meant for him and his career. And then you go on to Seth's importance of helping him win the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 40 against Roman Reigns. So, there was a lot to sort of dissect and discuss really with this particular segment. We weren't done just there though, because the conversation would flow and carry on still. Cody would say that, on his best night, so Seth is actually one of the best, if not the best. But Seth, hiding behind three goons, as Cody liked to say, will that happen again? Coming up to their match at Crown Jewel. Cody brings up the ring, which again he is wearing for the segment, before then Seth changes topic to the watch that he is wearing. And Seth says that Cody gave Seth Rollins this particular watch after WrestleMania 40. He says he hasn't worn it up until tonight. This is literally the first time he's worn it, apparently. And then he starts to question the validity of the watch, basically asking if it's actually more of a token gesture. After referring to the watch, he says that the Vision are not in fact goons and that he himself is the tip of the spear, before saying that Cody, you can be the quarterback, but you'll be my quarterback. Seth goes on to say that he's the alpha, he is the one that's in charge around here, before Cody then weighs back in, referring to the previous matches they've had together, saying that they were all one-on-one matches. This is what I was talking about a moment ago, basically referring to, whether this will be a one-on-one contest or whether the Vision will be involved and will get up in the business. He then follow up by asking Seth how many of those matches did he win before then Cody would leave the ring. So Cody actually being the successor in all three of their previous one-on-one matches during that little saga that they had. So yes, obviously there's a lot of history between the two, but it's all been Cody Rhodes winning every single one of them. The Vision step to Cody as Cody is leaving the ring, but they sort of stop him from leaving up towards the ramp. Then Heyman sort of clears them, say, pass through, as the Seth, and then Cody's allowed to head to the back. But yeah, basically just setting the scene for Crown Jewel, this particular interaction here. Champion versus champion, just get things started up in the best way possible, and start building towards that incoming match. So I guess job done here. Segment, basically did what it needed to do. We then go into our first match of the night, and this was a fun one. This was very exciting. We had Penta and the War Raiders taking on Grayson Waller and the New Day. This would be a 3-on-3 tag team match, and this was a no disqualifications tag team contest. So this had a whole lot going on. We had weapons galore, we had tables, we had kendo sticks, we had all sorts of stuff going on, steel chairs and the likes. We also had hats a lot of hats. We saw a few weeks ago Xavier Woods sporting that illustrious, very large, suave hat. And actually, the New Day would have 3 of them this time. They would all be wearing it at one point. War Raiders and Penta, they would then take the hats from the New Day. They would wear them at one point as well. Sort of like strutting around the ring, the whole Penta style walk that he does, the very smooth operator style, casual stuff. Yeah, it would be quite a fun matchup, this one. Very high tempo, pure chaos for the most part. Sort of something that you couldn't really keep your eyes off, and yeah, just had a really great time watching it. It was really, really entertaining. They all just, absolutely went to war with each other, which is obviously very, very appropriate for the War Raiders. But yeah, in the end, it would be Penta and the War Raiders picking up the victory here. Penta, Eric, and Ivar. This would come from Penta hitting a Avalanche Penta Destroyer from the second rope. But yeah, what a crazy matchup. Had so much fun, and yeah, it was a great way to kickstart the matches for the night. That's for sure. Into our next segment, we would then have Adam Pearce in the ring, and he would welcome down the new Women's World Champion, Stephanie Vicaire, victorious after her victory over iyosky at WrestlePalooza, becoming the Women's World Champion. So Stephanie Vicaire's first title on main roster. She's had absolutely tremendous time since coming into WWE, winning both the NXT Women's Championship and the North American Championship. Obviously, this is now her third title since coming into WWE. So very impressive start to her career. But her main roster career, she's got kickstarted as well with that Women's World Championship victory over iyosky. Stephanie would basically just pick up a mic and essentially say how she's accomplished a dream of hers. One that she was inspired to do so by her father. Been a very, inspiring figure for her growing up and getting into wrestling and just general progression throughout the industry. She thanks everyone for sharing the moment with her and enjoying it as much as she has. She's been shedding a few tears, and she thinks that a lot of the crowd fans have been doing the same thing, just basically just appreciating the general emotions and vibes that they've been showing towards her. She goes on to say that her fire will keep making history and that nobody can stop her from doing that. So basically, just doubling down, saying that she's had a great start, but she isn't going to slow down anytime soon. So yeah, just get those intentions set and clear. Adam Pearce talks about the WWE Women's Championship Triple Threat match, which is going to be happening on SmackDown this week. That sees Jade Cargill going up against Nia Jax, also going up against the reigning Women's Champion of Tiffany Stratton, and the winner of that one will in fact face Stephanie Vicaire at Crown Jewel for the Women's Crown Jewel Championship. So very much similar to Cody and Seth. This is obviously the other part of that one. Steph says that she will be there no matter what. And then she gets a little bit of a pyro display going on as she holds her championship high above her head to end that particular segment. But yeah, this is, as standard as it can really be here. It was a great sort of like moment for Steph to sort of like, getting in the adulation from the crowd. There was "you deserve it" chants through this one. And she just basically was allowed to sort of like enjoy herself and to, relish the moment of being the Women's World Champion and having nobody come out and attack her. We normally see a champion crowned and then suddenly, your target is on you like a flash. This actually is a little bit of a time where she can just, take it easy up until she knows who she's facing at Crown Jewel, and then she can prep. She's got a few days just to sort of like relax a little bit. So, speaking of the women's division, we go into our next match of the night, which would see Bayley go 1-on-1 with Roxanne Perez. This was a match that was pretty competitive. We've seen a bit of history in the past between Bayley and Roxy going from NXT to main roster, which ultimately eventually led to Roxy going onto the main roster at some point. That took a long time. But either way, regardless. We had this matchup here. Earlier in the night, there'd be a conversation between Lyra and Bayley backstage. Bayley sort of like showing that, that nice sort of hugger-esque style vibe to her in that interaction. And she was sort of, welcoming Lyra, asking her to come down into a corner tonight to basically support her for her match. You got Raquel Rodriguez on the outside with Roxy. It's only fair that Bayley has some backup, right? Lyra says, yeah, let's do it. They head down to the ring together. And eventually, during the matchup, it's a pretty fun contest. Like I said, pretty back and forth, nice and competitive. It gets to a point where Raquel Rodriguez is starting to get involved, and Lyra, she comes over and deals with Raquel. A little bit of interaction between those two. That leads then to Bayley getting the victory over Roxanne Perez. Sort of like battling her inner demons, though. There's sort of like an aggressive side of Bayley that comes out, more like the role model from, back when it was like the COVID era and she had the double championships. getting sort of like a lot of those vibes here coming from this particular side of Bayley. And then Lyra comes into the ring once the match has been done, once Bayley's got the victory. She's still fighting her inner demons and showing both signs of good and bad. Lyra tries to sort of like hug Bayley, sort of like celebrating with her, and then Bayley just turns in an instant and just throws Lyra to the mat, pushes her down, shoves her on the canvas, and basically tells her to stay out of her business, stay out of her way. So Lyra, looking a little bit shocked, still not particularly used to how this Bayley is really going to act and interact with anybody, and it's very hard to judge when she's just going to flip all of a sudden. So yeah, very interesting dynamic. We've spoken about this before. It seems to be they are going to go on with this sort of like Jekyll and Hyde style, demon and angel on the shoulders type gimmicky thing. I'm keen. Like I said, I'm interested to see how they do this. If this is going to be a long-term thing, obviously it's going to be a case of seeing how they sort of implement it differently going forward. But I think for the time being, I'm interested, I'm hooked, and just seeing where exactly this is going to end up. But for now, I couldn't consider me interested. I'm liking it so far. So, first half of Raw down, let's go into our second half. We would then get a one-on-one match between Rusev and JD McDonough. Dominic Mysterio, he had been talking backstage with the rest of JD, Judgment Day, and he would basically be asking for some sort of help with Rusev because he said that he's coming after the Intercontinental Championship on last week's episode of Raw. He spoke to Finn Balor at first, but Finn didn't want anything to do with Dom. He said that you didn't want help last week. You don't need our help this week. You want to do this by yourself? Go for it. Or go find El Grande Americano. But he's in Mexico this week, so Dom couldn't talk to El Grande. He then talked to JD McDonough though, and after a little bit of convincing by Roxanne Perez, JD would sort of say, you know what, okay, fine, I'll go and help you out with Rusev. So we get this matchup here right now, McDonough versus Rusev, and honestly, this is quite a fun match. I thought this was pretty heavy hitting. It was nice, sort of back and forth for a large part of it. JD McDonough got a bit of offense in, which is always good. And it wasn't particularly easy for Rusev. Got to a point in the matchup where Rusev just took complete control, and then a few moments later it was all over for JD McDonough once that accolade was locked in. But interestingly enough, Dominic Mysterio on the apron, he would he would get up there and he would sort of watch Rusev just locking in that accolade, and he would sort of he wanted to go and help, but at the same time he thought to himself, okay, well, I should probably not. So he chooses in the end not to go and help out JD McDonough, and he just lets Rusev continue with the accolade. JD eventually taps out, and post-match, Rusev doesn't release the hold. He keeps it locked in. That would then provoke Finn Balor to come on down to the ring in order to help out JD McDonough. He would drop Rusev quickly, just buying enough time for them all to escape, and that would be when Finn Balor would say to Dom, what are you doing? Why aren't you helping JD McDonough? You're out here. You got to try and help. Dom says that he was helping, but was he really? Didn't look like it to me personally. Maybe a little bit cowardly from Mysterio, but regardless of the fact, Rusev with a victory over JD McDonough, you could probably say that he is, on the verge of getting this IC championship opportunity. So we'll have to see when that does take place. But it's a good win for Rusev in what was a pretty competitive matchup eventually in the end. Going into our next matchup, this will be our penultimate contest of the night. We'd have Jey Uso one-on-one with LA Knight, and this sort of stems from, all the past few weeks, these two just not getting on, not meshing well together, not gelling, and just butting heads on multiple occasions. This past weekend, WrestlePalooza, LA Knight being the official referee for the match between the Usos and the Visions, Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. The tensions were still rising from that match there as well. So we get the conversation earlier in the night, Jey basically saying that he's booked a matchup himself one-on-one with LA Knight, even though Jey had suffered a bit of an injury at WrestlePalooza, busting himself open with a steel chair. So we go into the matchup, and honestly, pretty much as you'd expect this one to be. It was both men just sort of going hell leather for the most part. You can see the sort of like intentions between both men. They don't like each other, so they showed that in the ring. And it was very competitive. It was a fun match to watch. I think it just went back and forth. It allowed both men to showcase what they were able to do. And they just continue this feud that they sort of have been building throughout the past number of weeks, probably a good 6 or so weeks now. And yeah, it was nice to have a one-on-one match between the two men to settle things between the two. However, between the two of them didn't really last the entire contest, because Division, they would head down to the ring and would inadvertently assist Jey Uso, sort of like getting the attention of LA Knight. He was distracted. He went to take out Bronson Reed on the apron. So yeah, with Knight distracted, it got to a point where Jey Uso had enough time to sort of like recover, get back up to his feet, and then he would take out LA Knight, therefore getting the win literally about a couple of moments later, hitting a spear, going for the use of splash. That'll be enough to get the 1, 2, 3 in this one. But yeah, the Vision, they I don't know if they meant to help out Jey Uso here, but maybe they meant to cost LA Knight, I don't know. But that seems to be the way that this matchup sort of like went in the end. Whether that was intentional or not, obviously we can discuss that another time for sure. In terms of the Vision, though, they would sort of like act like sharks around the ring, and they was like Jey Uso would just head straight off to the ramp where Jimmy Uso would meet him. But as the Vision sort of like circling like sharks around LA Knight, who obviously before just lost his contest, Jimmy Uso, just sort of like say like, oh, to Jay, we need to go help. We need to go and help him out. Jay says absolutely not. He just walks off, walks backstage, and Jimmy grabs a steel chair, which is conveniently not right near him, and he runs right down to the ring and fends off Bronson and Braun. It's more or less Heyman saying, nah, don't bother, let him be, let's go, and let's get out of here. So there was no physical interaction between Jimmy and the two, just more of a warning, perhaps, I guess you could say, with that steel chair. Then we have our main event of the night, Rhea Ripley one-on-one with Asuka. And if you put these two in a ring together, you're probably going to get a really good match, right? That's exactly what would happen here in this one. Earlier in the night, we would have Asuka and Rhea once again sort of getting each other's faces. Eventually, a match would be made between the two of them, made official. And it seems to be made a pretty big deal throughout the course of the night when it did officially be announced, and rightfully so, because it was a really good matchup. These two put on a great showing at the end of the episode of Raw. And very much like the opening matchup, this one was really fun to watch. Obviously, it wasn't as chaotic as the opener, but this one was a nice one-on-one match with a great bit of pace to it, back and forth, throughout the entire matchup. Both women just showing up and showing out and having a really good match one-on-one. It got to a point. Kairi Sane is by Asuka's side, as she always is at the moment. I guess Asuka's little puppet, I guess we could say. And whatever Asuka tells her to do, she does. Whether she likes it or not, she eventually does it. So Asuka orders Kairi to help her out a little bit. She gets up onto the apron, and after a little bit of hesitancy, Rhea Ripley, clearly seeing that Kairi doesn't want to do what she's attempting to do, she doesn't hit her immediately. She just lets her sort of like have like a bit of a stare down with her on the apron. Kairi eventually goes for a spinning back fist type maneuver, and Rhea's able to block it. Again, she doesn't retaliate. She just doesn't do anything. She just holds her fist and simply just looks at her. That would then provoke Asuka into going for the Empress attack, which is that hip attack that she does, and she would look to hit it on Rhea Ripley from the back, but actually Rhea Ripley would get out of the way. She would avoid the contact, and Asuka would get all of Kairi Sane instead, knocking her down onto the floor. That would allow Rhea Ripley a little bit of a moment to get a roll-up victory over Asuka in the end, and to win this main event match of Raw. It wouldn't end there, though, because once the match had ended, Asuka, obviously very annoyed and upset about losing, she would unleash the poison mist on Rhea Ripley, just completely blinding her, taking her out of the action there. And as Asuka would start to beat down Rhea, she would then order Kairi to do the same thing. Kairi would get involved, and that would then allow iyosky to come on down to the ring in order to basically just try and convince Asuka to stop. The two have a little bit of a conversation. This then results in the two sharing a hug, and then once the hug is done, Asuka turns on Io, strikes her down, and she then orders Kairi to help her out. They hit that that tandem elbow drop / reverse DDT style maneuver that they do in the Kabuki Warriors, and they lay out iyosky. So yeah, a little bit of a crazy ending there in terms of this sort of like impending explosion between these three ladies. we can see it building for some time now. Asuka and Io's just like ill relationship, just furthering to to get more ill as time goes on. And yeah, now officially they have butted heads, and I guess there's no going back now. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. We'll have to see how this one goes down going forward. Expect probably a little bit of a backlash from iyosky next week. Rhea Ripley. I think maybe a tag match down the line probably seems the most appropriate. But obviously, you got to think, where does Kairi Sane lie here? Because she doesn't really want to do what she's doing. She's being forced to do it. So yeah, she clearly seems upset and yeah, just not happy about how this one's all turned out in the end. But yeah, that marks this episode of Monday Night Raw. I think it was a pretty decent episode. Just coming after WrestlePalooza, I think anything's going to look good after that. So the standards were low after that show. But I suppose really you're setting the scene for Crown Jewel, which are obviously got champion versus champion. And then we've got a couple of situations here, especially with Rusev looking to get that IC title. And, obviously the Vision continuing to wreak havoc. Bailey, her personality, where does that lie? That's quite interesting. And yeah, the breakdown between iyosky, Asuka, and obviously, Kairi being involved there and Rhea Ripley as well. So there's a whole lot to talk about here. It was a decent episode of Raw. I gave this one a 7 out of 10. I think that, things are improving a little bit, but I think we still do have a little ways to go. But I think in terms of what we saw on the show, nothing was overly bad. It was decent enough, but I just think, yeah, there could have been a bit more. But in terms of the matches, actually, you know what? I'll bump my rating up to 7.5. I think 7's a bit too harsh. We'll go 7.5. The opening match was really fun, was really great to watch, as was the main event. Great matches to sandwich in between, to sandwich either side of all the content in the middle. And yeah, this Raw was decent. But I think there are a few things I think we could be adding onto the show, just sort of like up the sort of like a general intensity of what's going on. There were a few omitted names from tonight's show as well, the likes of CM Punk, AJ Lee. So interested to see where exactly they were in the grand scheme of things here. So yeah, I think there is a little few things here and there. But alas, that is the Raw recap for this week from The Push. If you guys have enjoyed this one, then please let me know in the comments. Let us know what you think, whether it's good, bad, whatever. We'd love to hear your thoughts regardless. And yeah, please consider hitting a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. But for now, this has been The Push with Nick and KP, Raw Recap, and we'll see you all in the next one. Take it easy, everybody, and goodbye for now.